Alright guys, so welcome to the course and let's just get right into it. We're going to be making this animation first and I'm just going to play it for you guys. So it's basically an animation of sort of like a desk setup and we're going to be building everything out from scratch. We are going to be adding assets from BlenderKit. So I make sure to install BlenderKit and we're going to be doing all the lighting by ourselves. We're going to be using an HDRI to light this thing. And yeah, so let's just get started. So first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to obviously open Blender. And we can just go ahead and delete everything. Press S to Control S to save it, and I'm just going to be calling it the desk course. I think that should be fine. And so once it's saved, we can just go ahead and start working on the scene. All right. So first thing I'm going to do is I'm actually going to go to Google and I'm going to be searching average room dimensions, right? Because we want the scale to be realistic, so we can use realistic depth of field values and stuff like that. So I want the scale to be correct. Okay, so let's do something like this. Okay, I think this should be a good room size, and it's I think 10 feet and 2 inches. And actually this is not clear. How about I want something which is, maybe you go to this website and then it might be, yeah, okay. So it's 2.6 meters and 3.1 meters. Okay, so let's go ahead and add those dimensions. So I'm going to be adding a mesh, which is going to be a cube, right? And let's actually go to the side view first and press GZ to move it up in the Z axis, and then hold Control on your keyboard so we can snap to the X axis, right? Because you want it to be exactly on the X axis, right? So with that being done, we can just click this button right here and go to item, and we're already in item, but the dimensions, you can see that we have the dimensions right here. Okay, so I'm going to set the dimensions of y to be 2.6 like that, and the x should be 3.1. Again, this is totally up to you. You can just set the dimensions to whatever you want, and then I'm actually going to go ahead and search for average room height. So it's 8 feet, approximately 8 feet, right? So by the way, one thing you can do is you can just, if you want to, let's say, enter something in feet, you can just write 8 and FT, and it's automatically going to convert that into, what do you call it, meters. But now the problem is that it sort of went down below the z-axis, sorry, the x-axis, and now the problem is that if we go up, we can't really snap to the x-axis, right? So to fix that, I'm just going to be undoing this, right? And what we can do is we can just click the cube itself, press tab to go into edit mode, and then we can just select the top size, the top face, and then we can press a GZ and eyeball it sort of somewhere around what you want it to be. Something like that should be good. And you can see that's 2.2. Let's go a little higher, GZ, something like that, and that's 2.39, which is perfectly fine. Okay, so that's going to be our room. That's going to be the dimensions of our room. We can go inside it and you're going to see that we have plenty of space to work with. Okay, so now the first thing I'm going to be doing is that I'm just going to be adding a desk. So we can just go to BlenderKit and we can search for a desk. Now if you don't have BlenderKit installed, what you can do is you can just go to the internet and you can search for BlenderKit, click the first link, and go to blenderkit.com and click download BlenderKit. Okay, if you download BlenderKit, just click this right here and you can follow these instructions to install BlenderKit. But so once BlenderKit has been downloaded, what you can do is you can go back to, you can go back to Blender and you can click edit, preferences, and then you can go to add-ons and click install right here. And then you can just browse over to wherever you had that installed, that BlenderKit file downloaded, click it and click install add-on. I'm not going to be doing it because I've already installed it, but once you install it, you're going to see it right here. You just have to make sure that you check it. And if you don't check it, it's going to be disabled and you're going to have to check it before you can use it. So once that is done, you can go back to your viewport and you're going to see this search bar up here, which you can search, in which you can sort of search for models, textures, and a lot of other stuff, right? So if these are models, these are materials, these are scenes, and HDRIs and stuff like that, right? You can find a lot of stuff here. So I'm looking for a desk model, so I'm just going to be searching for desk. And one thing which I like to do is I like to go to BlenderKit, the settings right here. If you can't open this, by the way, it's for example, it's sort of something like this. You can click this button right here to open the menu, go to search filters and free first. So I can sort of see the free ones because I'm not really trying to pay for anything. Again, now this part is very subjective. You can just choose whichever desk you think looks good, and I would actually recommend you to not choose the one which I'm choosing. So you can like sort of test your own creativity and make something different and something unique than mine. You can also go ahead and model your own desk if you want. And that would actually be better. So I think the one which I used was this one. Also, sometimes it's not going to show you the preview. So what you can do is you can click this I button right here and click it again. So then it's going to fix the problem. So you're going to see that this one looks pretty good. It's a IKEA something something. And so I'm just going to be adding that. So let's go to side view. Press Alt Z on your keyboard so we can make sure that it is right on the x-axis, like it's not above the ground. Then you can press Alt Z again to go outside of X-ray mode. And let's go inside here, something like that. And what we can do is we can right click the collection, right click it and click select objects. So that's going to select all the objects. And we can press RZ, rotate it -90. Just type -90 on your keyboard and it's going to rotate it exactly that much. And then we can press G and X to take it back, something like that. And we can go outside, go to our go to our side view mode, and we can place it something like that. Make sure it's a little ahead of the wall, not just completely on it, because we want the shadows to look good, and it's just going to add to the realism. Alright, so I think this is a little small for our needs, so I think we should I should maybe scale it up in the y-axis, something like that, a little bit, not a lot. Yeah, I think something like that should be good. You can also separate these if you want, but I think that's fine. Because the chair is going to be in the middle, I think it's going to look good. So, yeah. Now let me actually just go ahead and open my reference so we can see what to add, so we can start populating our scene. Right, so let's start with the screen because that's going to take up the most space. So I think I just found a screen on this Blender kit. There are some models which were not available on Blender kit. I couldn't find good models, so I had to download them from the internet. So I'm going to show you that as well. Was it this one? I don't think it was this one. I think it was a Samsung one. Where'd it go? It was literally here. But again, this whole part is like just your own sort of personal preference. You can just go for whatever type of screen you want. What if I look for screen? Let's see. Oh yeah, it's this one right here. So ultra wide 49-inch monitor, and just open it, just click it, and then what you can do is you can just so right now, the problem is that this collection right here, this monitor is inside the IKEA collection. So I'm going to right click and select objects right for this ultra wide monitor, and then I'm just going to be dragging it outside the collection. Right click again, select objects, and now we can press Alt Z to go into X-ray mode, and we can go to the side view and place it on top of the table. The reason why we're going into X-ray mode is because obviously if I don't go into X-ray mode, you're not going to see it. You're not going to see through the walls, which is not what we want. Just make sure that it's slightly above the table. Just like make sure it's not intersecting, because that's going to mess up the shadows and everything. So I usually prefer my objects to be like hovering a little over the thing, but like not intersecting, because that's worse in my opinion. Okay, one thing which I might want to do is I might want to scale this up in SX in the x-axis as well, something like that. And let me go to my side view again and GX, move it ahead like that, and then I can select the cabinets as well, and I can select all objects, and then I can shift select the top. So I can only like basically, because I only want to move the, what do you call it? The cabinets. Okay, actually, select all these, and if I deselect this, yeah, this should move something like that. Just move them ahead a little bit like that. Perfect. So we're looking pretty decent. Okay, let's see what else we have. We're going to be texturing and everything, doing all that later on. Right now, I'm just going to populate the scene first, and so that we can add more stuff. So let me go ahead and add a mouse pad. So the mouse pad, I couldn't really find a good model for the mouse pad, so I just ended up creating one myself. It's pretty easy. It's pretty basic. So you just go to add, mesh, and cube. Just add a cube like that. Oops, select it. Scale it down. My bad. Press GX, something like that. And just make sure that it's it's roughly in the right position. SX, SZ, my bad, like that. Let's go to the side view, X-ray mode, and then place right here, scale it down. Make sure it's like very thin. I think something like that should be a good thickness. Yep, pretty good. And then we can obviously go ahead and scale it properly. Then go to the top view. Again, this is not necessarily a modeling tutorial, so I'm not going to be going into too much detail about like how to sort of model stuff. But I mean, honestly, this is like a very basic model. I'm assuming that you already know how to like model stuff like this. Again, the size of the mouse pad is up to you. You can just set the size to be whatever you want. And let me move it back a little bit, something like that. And so to add the edges, add the curves around the edges, what I did was I just went ahead and went into edit mode, press tab to go into edit mode. And you can select all the edges. First go to edge select mode, by the way. Select all the edges, this one. Hold shift, select this one as well. The other side, this one as well. And lastly, this one, okay? With all the edges selected, make sure to press shift before selecting the other edges, so you can like sort of select all of them together. And with all of them selected, you can press Control B on your keyboard, and that's gonna basically bevel it, right? But right now you're gonna see that it's not uniform. Now, if that's what you want, you can go for that, but that's not something I want, obviously. So I'm just gonna be undoing that by pressing Control Z. I can tab out of edit mode, and before going into edit mode, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna press Control A, and that's gonna bring up this apply menu. I'm just gonna press all the transforms. So it's just gonna apply all the transforms, and now it's gonna give us uniform, what do you call it, beveling, right? And I think all of them are already selected, so I don't need to select them again. Control B, just like that. And you can use your scroll wheel in your mouse to sort of increase the segment, something like that. So I think maybe something like that should be a good option. Increase the segments quite a lot, and I think that should be a good curve. You can open this setting to change the number of segments. So I'm going to reduce them, something like that. And I'm just going to set them to 10 because I don't want it to really show the segments. Something like that should be good. And now what we can do is we can just go ahead and tab out of edit mode. My bad. And another thing which I'm going to be doing is that I'm going to be applying a bevel modifier to this as well, because right now you can see the edges are pretty sharp. That's not what we want. So I'm just going to select the cube, select the mouse pad, and go to modifiers, right? Add modifier, search for bevel, and hit enter like that. The amount is going to be very minute, so 0.001 or something like that. That's still a lot. So how about 0.0001? Something like 0.5, maybe 3. You can see the difference right here. It's like just adding a tiny bit of a bevel. And segments, let me just increase that to 3 so that we can make it smooth. Right click and shade auto smooth. Just do that so you can like sort of shade itself smooth, right? And now you're gonna see that our mouse pad looks pretty good, right? Actually, I don't know about the shade smooth part. I think shade flat looks better. Yeah, I think I'm gonna go with that. Perfect. So our mouse pad looks pretty decent. Let's move on to the next thing, which is gonna be, let's add the keyboard and the mouse. Let's add the mouse first, because I'm pretty sure the mouse was from BlenderKit. The keyboard, I don't think it was from BlenderKit. The options that I found on BlenderKit weren't as good. Yeah, I think the mouse was this one. Let me see if we can find a better mouse, honestly. Because I was trying to add an MX Master, because that's the mouse that I actually have, but I couldn't really find it. Couldn't really find it. What's happening to my English? So yeah, I don't think I can find a good mouse. And I just remembered, how about we also add like a controller, a game controller, like a PS5 controller? Yeah, that looks good. Or like an Xbox controller. Let me try to add this one. And yeah, I think is it downloaded? It's not. What happened to the download? Oh, it's downloaded. Okay. Okay, it's inside this collection. My bad. So I'm just gonna select objects, and I don't think you need to select objects, by the way. You can just move it outside the collection. And actually, let me put everything inside this collection right here, because I want it to be all, uniform and stuff. So you're gonna see that all the first stuff is in this, and I'm just gonna be naming this mouse pad. Perfect. Select this controller, select objects, GZ, and let me inspect the model to see if it looks good. You can also by the way, one thing that I just did was oftentimes what's gonna happen is that you're, let's say, trying to orbit around this mouse, but it's not, the center is not set to the, my bad, not the mouse, the controller. The center is not set to the controller. What you can do is you can press Alt on your keyboard and press the middle mouse button with your cursor being on the object that you want to orbit, and then it's gonna reset the orbit point, right? It's gonna make it a lot easier for you to change, sort of do what you want. And let me go to viewport shading mode just so I can see what this whole thing is. Oh, so I think it's a shadow, so I don't think we should delete it. Or should be. I think we should. It's fine. Because we don't really need the shadow in you, honestly. Select objects. Let me press GZ. And the good thing about using a realistic scale for our room is that we don't really need to scale everything again and again now. We already know that the scales are going to be correct for the most part. However, there are going to be some objects which are going to have bad scale. Especially the ones which we're going to be importing outside of Blender. That's why I want to import everything which is inside BlenderKit first before we can move on to importing objects outside BlenderKit. Let's do the mouse next. This one right there. And bring it out. Select objects, GZ, GX, and then go to the side view. Place it on top of the mouse pad. This is important. You have to place it. Actually, one sec. The mouse pad is hovering over the table, so I don't want that. Also, make sure that your mouse pad is not intersecting the table, because that's going to mess up the shadows and it's not going to look good. So make sure that it's like slightly above the table, just like a tad bit. That should be nice. And one thing which I am going to do is that I'm going to be removing the wire part of this, because I want this mouse to be like sort of like a wireless mouse. Also, be sure to save your project, by the way. So I'm just going to go to edit mode. And this might sound a little complex, but it's actually pretty easy. You can just go to the side view mode, select all these, right? All these edges. And then you can press Control and plus on your number pad. Now, if you don't have a number pad, what you can do is you can go to File, actually not File, Edit, Preferences, and you can go to, I think it was Input, and yeah, Emulate number pad. So if you do this, if you click this, even if you press plus on your number line, the one above your keyboard, that's still going to work. But otherwise, you're going to have to use your number pad. So keep pressing Control plus or Command plus once all of these parts are selected, and then you can just click Delete and Vertices. So it's just going to get rid of that part. Now what you can do is you can make sure to select all the objects, GY like that. Go to the top view so we can place it properly. And you don't need it to be like 100% like straight. You can add a little bit of rotation to it. It's just gonna make it look a little more realistic. That's the thing about architecture renders. You have to make sure that you add a little bit of imperfections in it so that it looks more realistic. Let's add a plant next. Plant. I think the plant which I added, like this one right here, it was definitely one of these. I don't know which one though. Let me see. Sometimes it's not going to load some stuff, so you just have to press enter again, and so it sort of reloads the results. go ahead. Okay. I don't really know which one it was. Again, plants is just up to you. Whichever one you like, you can just add that. I wouldn't recommend you to add the same one as me, so you know, I can probably add this one. How about this one? I think I'm probably just gonna add, which one was it? Probably this one. No, actually, not this one. The one before that. Where'd it go? Yeah, this one. Let me try adding this one. So take it outside the collection, select objects, GZ. We're adding it for now. We'll see if it looks good, if it looks realistic or not. If it doesn't, then we can just go ahead and delete it. Make sure that it's on the table like that, and go to the top view and make sure that it's not intersecting any other object. It is intersecting the TV a little bit, not the TV, the monitor. So I think that should be fine. Perfect. Let's move on to adding the MacBook. So let's add the MacBook. I'm purposefully adding all the objects which I found on BlenderKit before. So I think the MacBook was this one, so that we can add all the objects which are outside of Blender, like all together at once, you know. GZ and GZ once again. Place it right there, like that. And I think this MacBook is a little big. I think it's fine. It's gonna look good. Yeah, so I mean, honestly, the MacBook being there doesn't really make a lot of sense, but it's fine for now. You can obviously, if you make your own, when you make your own render, you can maybe try to make it make a little more sense, you know. Let's add an audio interface. Audio interface is this thing right here. It's used with this mic, the SM7B. I think I used this one, but you can obviously go for any one you want. Also, I think this mic looks pretty good. I'm actually gonna add this one this time, but you can obviously go ahead and add any mic you want. But okay, take it out. Select objects, GZ. So this is basically just like, you know, it's as simple as playing The Sims or something like that. When you're just like designing a whole space, you know. 90 degrees and GX. Take it back, something like that should be good. Perfect. So I think we're looking pretty decent. Let me go ahead and add this mic, but I'm going to show you where I got the SM7B mic, so you guys can add that if you want. I added the mic and the stand separately, by the way, so you can go ahead and do that if you want. Let me go to the front view. So I have two options. Either I add the mic from there or there. I think I'm going to add it from that side. So for that, I'm going to have to press RZ and then 180, so I can rotate it like that. And the width is perfect for some reason, which is good. And yep, pretty good. And this mic is also, I think it's rigged, which is really good. So what we can do is we can just go to pose mode and we can change the position of these. That's actually really good. Because usually you don't really see rigged mics. Oops. Let's go to this mode so we can actually see what's happening. Something like that. And I think that should be a good point. Oops, my bad. That should be a good point for the mic. Let's get out of all these modes so that it looks good. Okay. Let's go to pose mode once again and select this and rotate it like that. I think that looks good. Back to object mode, and yeah, our mic looks pretty good. So one thing which I am going to be doing next is that, let me add the iPhone next. iPhone I think was also from BlenderKit. let me, I don't know what iPhone I had it. I think it was probably this one. Let me just add this one on, honestly. Doesn't really matter which one you add. GC, go here, GC, and go to the side view like that and rotate it as well 180 degrees because I want it to be upside down. You can have it not upside down if you want, but yeah. And I'm just going to be rotating it slightly just so we can add some more realism. Alright, so I think the only thing left to add is probably just the keyboard and the lamp. So let me add the lamp first because that was from Blender Kit as well. And I think it was this one. I actually kind of want to add a different lamp this time. I think this one's fine. Okay, so select objects, G Shift Z, G Shift Z right there. The reason why I'm pressing Shift Z is so that we can move in all axes except for the Z axis. That's important. Scale it down, something like that, and paste it right there. Make sure that none of the objects are intersecting. Perfect. The only thing left to do is the keyboard. So let's see if you can find the keyboard from here. So yeah, you have a lot of good options here. I think this one will probably be my favorite. But again, I also want to show you guys how to sort of import models from outside of Blender. Actually, I kind of like this one, honestly. G19. Let me see how this one looks. Actually, I'm going to go with this one, honestly. But I'm just going to show you how to import models anyway. -90. Go to the side view. GZ. Perfect. So I think our scene is pretty much done, isn't it? Yeah, I think it's pretty much done. So if you want to import import models outside of Blender 3D, what you can do is you can just search for, let's say, keyboard 3D model. And I usually prefer this website called Sketchfab. Actually, this is a really good scene in my opinion because it's like a whole setup. Anyway, yeah, so you can just choose any keyboard. I think this one looks pretty good. Oh, it's animated. I don't really think it matters because we're not really trying to use the animation. Oh, I think this one looks pretty good. Yeah, I actually like this one more. I'm just going to take this one. So once you have decided what keyboard to take, you can just click download 3D model, and you can download the FBX format or the GITF format or the GLB format. Make sure to not download the USDZ format because I don't think you can open that in Blender by default. So once you download the FBX, I usually prefer the FBX model, by the way. So once you do download the FBX model, I think this model looks pretty good as well. Honestly, keyboard, like there's a lot of really good options for keyboards on Sketchfab. I might make like a Mac scene with this. Let's see. Anyway, so once you have downloaded the zip file, you can just basically select both of the files, folders, and go to desktop or go wherever you want and create a new folder. I'm just gonna call it keyboard course, and then you can drag both of those in the folder, and then you can go to source, and you have this FBX file, right? Go back to Blender, go to file, import. Oops, my bad. File, import, and then FBX. Go to desktop, go to the folder, go to source, and select the FBX file, and click import FBX, right? And so now you're gonna see this is exactly what I was talking about. Some things won't have the correct scale, so I'm just gonna be right-clicking it. Actually, okay, it's these three objects, right? So with all them selected, I'm gonna right-click them, new collection, and I'm gonna drag them inside this collection like that. And name this collection keyboard. I think keyboard is fine. Right click, select objects, and scale them down like that. And I'm gonna be going to the top view, and so I can basically scale it the same as the keyboard that we had. Something like that should be a good scale. And then you have to move it up as well. GZ. Make sure it's not intersecting the mouse pad. Something like that should be good. Perfect. Now we can just go ahead and hide this. And so this is this keyboard, and if I hide this and turn this on, you can see that this is the other keyboard. Okay, so I personally think let me move the mouse a little away. I personally think this one might look better, but we can, like, once we are sort of lighting the scene and we're rendering it, we'll just see what looks better, and then we're just gonna add that because we have options for both of them, right? And I think we have some extra space here, so if you want to add something there, you can feel free to do that. Oh yeah, actually, my bad, I added headphones. So let's see if we can find headphones. Ideally, you would want to add headphones with a stand. So these Beats ones look decent. These look good, honestly. Oh, they also have the Surface headphones, but they're paid. They also have the AirPod Maxes. Let's see if I can find free Surface headphones. Yeah, no, I don't think I'll find them. I think these Razer ones look decent, or so it's either the Razer ones for me or these Beats. I think I'm gonna go with the Beats because I think I've made a render with the what do you call it, with the Razer ones before, so I don't want to reuse the same object. Bring it up like that. And we can honestly just go ahead and model our own headphone stand. That's going to be a good sort of modeling tutorial for you guys as well. Scale it down, R, and then Y like that. 90, actually negative 90 degrees. Not negative 90 actually. A little more than that. Just eyeball it and make sure it looks good. I think it's still a little too big. So I'm just going to be selecting the object and reducing the scale a tad bit, something like that. Perfect. Now let's go ahead and model our own headphone stand. So I'm just going to go to Add, Mesh, and Cube. Let me turn off Blender Kit for now. And so I can just go ahead and scale this cube down, GZ, bring it up. And bring it up like that, scale it down, G-Shift-Z. Now what I can do is I can just go ahead and scale it down, something like that. Oops. Scale it up in all axes except for the Z axis. So I'm just gonna press S and Shift Z. Now some modeling parts might be a little too complex for you guys, so I'm really sorry for that. But I sort of am assuming that you know the basics of modeling. If you don't, then you can probably go ahead and take one of my modeling courses if you want. Okay, so this should be a good starting point. What we can do now is we can press I with the stop face selected. We can press I and scale it down like that, right? And then press E to extrude, something like that. Let's go up to the end of the headphones. Oops, my bad. GZ, something like that. Something like that should be a good point. And now what we can do is we can press Ctrl R on our keyboard and add a loop cut somewhere right there. And we can select this face, extrude it out. Oops, my bad. Press E to extrude it out, something like that. And this back face, extrude it out as well. So that should be sort of like a good headphone stand. We're obviously going to add some beveling and some modifications to this. What we can do is we can go ahead and add a modifier. Let's try adding the bevel modifier. If that doesn't look good, we can then go ahead and add a subdivision surface modifier. I think something like that should be good. Increase the scale. Yeah, I think this looks pretty decent. Only thing that I don't like is the width of this part. So what I'm actually going to do is that I'm going to select all these edges. by holding shift and then scale them down, just so that we can add some sort of depth to this as well. And let me select all these edges as well, scale them down slightly, something like that. Yeah, just so that we can sort of add some character to this. Maybe add a loop cut, like that. Something like that. And then maybe we can take this face, extrude it up, and the back face extrude it up as well. But in this we can select this edge and move it back. And the front one as well. Again, all this is personal preference. You can, if you think this headphone stand looks terrible, then you can feel free to sort of make your own different version of your headphone stand. But yeah, I think for now this is looking pretty decent. The only thing that I want to do next is I want to select the headphones and bring them down like that, and GX like that. Let's go to the top view. Actually, not the top view. And let's move it in this axis just to make sure it's in the center. Okay, perfect. So I think, yeah, I was going pretty fast in that modeling part, just because this is not necessarily a modeling tutorial. If you do want to properly learn modeling, you can go ahead and check my other courses, which I have on my Udemy page, I think. But yeah, you can take other courses for modeling, and this is not necessarily like a modeling course, so I didn't really go into too much detail. But yeah, I think we are pretty much done with our scene. Yeah. The only thing left is probably adding a chair. So I'm just gonna, let me actually search for a gaming chair. And I think I added this one probably. So we can, what I'm gonna do is I can place it out, right click, select objects, RZ and rotate it, -90. GZ, place it right there. Make sure it's not intersecting with any of the objects. G Shift Z and place it right there. Yeah, perfect. It looks pretty good. So I think we are pretty much done with our scene. You can add some wall art if you want. You can maybe like search for like a painting or a poster or whatever. Maybe something like this. Maybe something like that. You can add whatever you want. I'm gonna be adding, let me just add this one honestly because it looks pretty good. So just select objects, my bad, right click the painting, select objects, GZ like that, G Shift Z and place it there. I'm gonna go to my viewport shading mode just so I can see which side is the front. That's the front side. I can rotate it, RZ and then 90, RY and then 90 like that. Let me go back to my viewport mode and place it right there. Let's go to my front view and make sure that it's in the center, because otherwise it's gonna trigger my OCD. Yeah, I think it looks pretty good. Let's see how it looks in the viewport shading mode. And so now we can just go ahead and add, just start to work on the lighting a little bit. And alongside the lighting, we can also do some texturing, add some materials. For example, the materials to this mouse pad, to the table, to the keyboard, and like some things just don't have materials, right? So we're just going to be adding materials to those now. And we can also change the wallpaper of this because I think it looks pretty trash. But yeah, okay, so let's go ahead and start working on that. And also the floor and everything. All right, I'll see you in the next part. All right, so the lighting part is actually pretty straightforward. So we can go back to our viewport mode. And what we're going to be doing is that we're just going to be creating a window like right here, so that we can basically let in some sunlight, and we can, yeah, basically that's essentially what we're going to be doing. So with the cube selected, I'm just going to press tab to go into edit mode. Make sure to go to face select mode and select this face right here. With this face selected, we can just press I to inset it, right? And so you can also press G to like move it a little bit. And once you're satisfied with sort of the position of the window, then you can go ahead and just press delete and select faces. Right, so now what's going to happen is that it's basically going to sort of delete that part, right? So now what we can do is we can just go ahead and add a window model first, right? So I'm just going to search for window in BlenderKit. And you can also add some blinds if you want. I think maybe something like that might be good. Or is it too big? Actually, I think something like that should be good. Let me add that. So with the window added, I can select objects and move it. So I'm just going to be pressing G, Shift, Z, move it right here. And GZ. Actually, what I can do is I can maybe remove one of these. And I can just have the other ones. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to be selecting all these, like this whole part, delete, and then vertices. Actually, not vertices. Actually, I don't think that's going to work because, yeah, the geometry is sort of linked to each other. So what I can do is I can maybe look for some other window. We could probably add this one. The only thing that I'm concerned about is the window panes. The side parts are going to be too thick. I think there's an add-on for this as well in which you can like add, like generate windows in Blender. But I don't really remember which one was it. What the add-on was called. But if you do know that, you can feel free to use that instead. Actually, let me add this one. I think this one looks pretty good. So I'm just gonna be taking the sliding window out and select the window and delete it like that. And let me actually collapse all my stuff so I can just have the whole collection, have my whole scene outliner be very organized. G, Shift, Z, move it here like that. Scale it down to match the size of the window, like our opening. Maybe scale it up a little bit, and then you can go ahead and scale it up, move it up, GZ, something like that, GZ, like that. And then you can just go ahead and scale, select this edge and just move it down just to fit the window. All right, perfect. So now we have a window model, and now we can just go ahead and add some light to this. So right now, if I go to my render mode, you're gonna see that there's really nothing except for this lamp, which is lighting the scene, which also looks pretty bad in my opinion. That's because we are in our render engine is set to Eevee. You can just go to render settings, render properties, and change your render engine to cycles. Once you do that, you're gonna see that our scene is automatically gonna look a lot more realistic. And it's going to be pretty slow in the start, but if you set your device to GPU compute, assuming you do have a GPU in your computer, it's going to be much faster. Perfect. So now what we can do is we can go ahead and sort of add sort of like a sun in HDRI, which is going to have a sun, which is going to light up our scene, right? So there's two ways of adding HDRIs. First option you have is just go up here to BlenderKit, and you could just add HDRIs and try out multiple HDRIs. So maybe something like sun, oops, my bad. Search for sun, and let's see what we have. Maybe something like that. You can select the quality. I'm going to select this one, 4000. Good thing about BlenderKit is that it's automatically going to add your HDRI for you, so you don't really have to do anything. You can go to shader editor down there and go to world, and then you can change the position, the rotation, and sort of make the lighting better. Make it so that the sun is actually lighting up your scene. But yeah, what I'm going to be doing instead is that I'm going to be adding an HDRI from HDRI Haven. So there's this website called Polyhaven. It used to be called HDRI Haven. And you can just get a lot of really good, really high quality HDRIs from here. I think these are better quality than BlenderKit, but I'm not really sure. Because I don't really use BlenderKit HDRIs like that much. But yeah, you can just choose any of these. The one which I'm going to be using is, I think it was probably, let me check. So I think it was probably something called near the field or something, near the forest. Let me just search near go to all. Yeah, near the river. My bad. Yeah, near the river 01. I think this was the one which I used. So I'm just going to be using this one once again. Okay, because it gives you like pretty good shadows and it gives you like pretty realistic result. You can select 8K or 16K. Anything below 8K I wouldn't really recommend unless your PC is like very slow. Select HDR, and then click download. But yeah, once you have it downloaded, what you can do is you can go to the word properties right here. And assuming you haven't already added an HDR, I'm just gonna undo that. It's gonna be something like this by default. So you can click this button right here, this yellow button, click environment texture, and then you can click open, and you can just browse over to wherever you had that installed. Downloaded. Near the river 01, like that. And you're gonna see that it doesn't really look that good right now. The reason for that is because you're facing the wrong way, right? The sun is that way, and our window is right here. So I want to make sure that we rotate the HDRI in such a way that it's basically, the sun is basically lighting up our scene, right? So I'm going to be rotating it. Just keep rotating it until you find the right, oops, my bad. We're actually not using this HDRI. So I'm just going to be deleting this one and just plug in the vector from the mapping node to the vector of this HDRI. If you don't have these nodes, by the way, you can just select the, I'm actually going to delete these and add them again. You can just select the HDRI, press Ctrl T on your keyboard, and it's going to come up, right? Like that. If this doesn't work, that means you don't have the Node Wrangler add-on enabled. So to enable that, you can go to Edit, Preferences, Add-ons, and then just search for Node Wrangler and make sure that this is checked. Okay. So once that is done, you can go ahead and rotate it and just see when it starts to look better. This is going to take some trial and error, but eventually you will find a position which is going to look really good. Okay, perfect. So I found a position where the sunlight is sort of coming in like that. Perfect. And I think this thing looks pretty good now in this lighting, right? The only problem is if you've ever taken a picture of like a room with a window, you're gonna see that the window is actually usually pretty overexposed, and it's not actually, the exposure is not actually the same, right? So what I'm gonna do for that is that I'm gonna be changing the strength of the background node in the HDRI. So if I set it to something like 2, you're gonna see that this part is gonna become a lot more overexposed, and it's gonna be good. Okay. One other problem which you're noticing right now is the fact that it's rendering very slow. The reason for that is because we have this material in our window which is calculating two things. It's first calculating the light which is coming inside, and it's also calculating the reflections on the window, which is something very expensive for a computer. It's going to cost a lot of time to render. So I'm actually going to be getting rid of that. So let's select the window. Let's go to our shader editor. Make sure you are in the shader editor. Instead of the world, we're going to be going back to object. And now you're going to see that this is basically a very complex material, right? So what we're going to be doing is that we're going to take the material output of cycles, and we're going to unplug the surface and volume. And what we're going to be doing is that we're just going to press Shift A, and we're going to be searching for transparent BSDF. Now this is not going to have all those reflections and everything, so it's not going to look as good, but it's going to render a lot faster, right? So just add that, and you're going to see that is gonna render quite faster. Another option that you have is you can just simply select the glass and just delete it. That's another option that you have. And actually I'm just gonna do that instead because it's just better and faster in my opinion. So I'm just gonna go ahead and delete all the glass because we don't really need that complex reflections, because this one, let's be honest, this window is barely gonna be visible, so we don't really need all that stuff. I think our scene looks pretty decent right now. Now let's go ahead and add some materials that we were missing. So the first one is going to be a wood material for the tabletop. So let's go to materials right here in Blender Kit and just search for wood. And you can obviously choose any of these options. I kind of like this one. Maybe this one. How about this? I think I'll go with this one. I think this was the one which I used initially as well in the original render. I'm not really sure though. Also, you can go to render properties and turn on denoise. That's going to make your scene look a lot better. And make sure the denoiser is set to optics if you have an NVIDIA RTX graphic card. That's just going to give you better results. Like faster results, not better results. And okay. So I think so far it looks pretty decent. This, what do you call it? The wood material. I'm not really feeling the wood material, honestly. How about this? Make sure your table is selected before adding any material so that it adds it to that specific object, right? I don't know. How about this? I think that looks really decent. Oh, I love this. Honestly, I think this was the one which I used in my initial render, and yeah, I'm definitely going with this for sure. Okay, so that's done. Now we can move on to the material for the mouse pad. So I can just search for fabric, or actually let me search for leather, because leather mouse pads I've heard are really, they look pretty good. Let's see. Let's zoom in and see how it looks. Okay, so right now you're going to be noticing one thing is that the scale of the leather is pretty large, right? We don't want it to be that large. So I'm just going to select the mouse pad, and with this selected, we're going to go to the UV editing tab. Right now you're going to see that we have this some random stuff right here. So you don't really need to understand what this is if you're a beginner in Blender. If obviously you're advanced, you know what UV editing is, but we don't really need to understand UV editing to sort of get this. But I'm just gonna open the second viewport and make sure that you are in the material preview mode like that, and zoom in something like that, and then scale it down. Okay, with this selected, then you can just click this viewport, press A to select everything, and then the larger you make this, the smaller your texture is gonna become on your this viewport, you know. And so if I make it something like that, you're gonna see that if I go back to my layout mode, you're gonna see that now it looks a lot better, right? Much better. Perfect. So I think that that's what I'm going to be going with, and I think the phone looks pretty decent as well. You can change the color if you want, so maybe actually I think the color looks pretty fine, pretty good. Moving on to the keyboard. So for the keyboard, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to be searching for plastic materials, search for plastic, and something like that, because I want it to be like a white keyboard, or like a white and black and white keyboard. Actually, you know what I'm gonna do? I have a really good idea. The base I'm gonna make it black, and the top I'm gonna make it white. How does that look? I think it looks pretty unique. Or how about I make the top black and the base white? Or how about I make it all black? I kind of think the all black looks better. But that's just me. Again, you can just choose whatever you want. How about we make the base metallic? I think that looks pretty good. And the top white, but like not that white. You can change the base color to be a little towards the gray side. No, that just looks dirty in my opinion. Yeah, I think that looks pretty good. So yeah, I think so far we're looking pretty decent. We can turn off the guides just to see how it looks without them. And let's actually let it render for a bit so we can actually see how it looks. And yeah, I think we're coming together pretty good. This whole scene is coming together pretty decent. And yeah, so we can just continue with the lighting part. And actually the lighting is essentially mostly done. What we can do now is we can maybe add some more materials to different objects, and we can just continue working. All right, so I think the next step should be to add a material for the floor, because the floor is white and it doesn't look good at all. So I'm just going to be searching for, let's go to materials first. Let's search for wooden floor. I can't even speak anymore. Something like that. Okay, now the problem is that it's applying to the whole thing. So the way you fix that is by basically, let me just go back to my viewport mode. Actually, let me just go to this material preview mode. So what's going to happen is that if you select the cube, and let me turn on the guides as well. So if I basically go to my material settings, you're going to see that we don't have any materials right now, right? So let me make sure I've selected the cube. Yeah, I don't know why it says mousepad. But yeah, so let me click new to create a new material, right? And we can just give this any color we want, like for now, just to like see how it looks, right? Now what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna press tab to go into edit mode. Let's go to face select mode and then click the floor face. And with that, I'm gonna be clicking plus to create a new material and then click new again to basically create a new material, right? And I can just give this like any other color, like for example, a blue. And with this face selected, I'm gonna be clicking this material right here and click assign. Now what this is going to do is that this is going to basically give this floor a different material than this the wall material, right? So if I tab out of edit mode, now if I select this material slot, you're going to see, and if I go ahead and apply any material, for example, you're going to see that the good part is that it's only going to apply that material to the floor, right? And this material, we can just search for something like wall. Let me go back to my rendered mode. And actually, we can just probably just give it a color. It doesn't really need to be like a material, you know. I'm just gonna make it like slightly grayish. That should be good. Or maybe you can search for wall paint. It is gonna add like a slight bit more realism. Roll painted wall, we can probably apply that material and then we can change the color. So if we go down to the shading tab, you're gonna see that this is the color picker. So what we can do is we can just reduce the saturation to 0 and increase the color to something like that. Good part about this is that if you zoom in, you're gonna see that it's gonna have some imperfections in the wall. Let me show you them. Okay, let's wait for it to render a bit. You're gonna see that it's not gonna be completely flat. It is gonna have some imperfections and it's gonna be way more realistic than just adding a simple color, right? So we're done with that. The floor also seems to be good. The only thing is the floor is pretty, what do you call it? It's pretty big. The tiles are pretty big. So I'm gonna go to UV editing mode with the cube selected. And let me just select this face right here and select, just like click here and press A or just select it manually. Doesn't really matter. And the bigger you make this, the smaller your texture is gonna be. So just adjust accordingly. I think something like that should be good. And then we can go back to our layout mode and yeah. I think it looks pretty good. Okay, so our scene is already looking pretty decent. Now what we can do is we can go ahead and actually, you know, one thing which I'm going to do is I'm actually going to be getting rid of this keyboard, and I'm just going to have the other one, the one which we imported from BlenderKit. I think this one looks a lot better. Yeah, I think this one looks way better. Maybe we can probably change the color of the keycaps a little bit. Maybe make it a little darker. So the base color, just reduce it a little bit, something like that. I think that looks better. Yeah. Now I think the next step should be just to go ahead and add a camera to this so that we can sort of make adjustments based on that. And so I'm just going to go to add camera and click this button right here to go inside the camera. And let me just go back to my viewport mode just so that we can move it smoothly. And we can lock camera to view, go to view and click lock camera to view. Now, if I move my camera, you're going to see, if I move my viewport, you're going to see that's also going to move the camera with it. Perfect. So I think something like that should be a good shot. I am going to be zooming out a little bit. The way you zoom out is by pressing Control, Alt, and Shift on your keyboard, and then just using the left mouse, left click button to move your viewport. And if I go to rendered mode, you're going to see that it's basically showing us the parts outside the render as well. So I'm just going to be pressing Control B and just selecting this region so that only shows us parts inside the render region. And we can see that it looks pretty good. It looks pretty realistic. We can unlock the camera to view now. And yeah, it looks pretty good. So only thing which I might want to do is I might want to move it a little towards this side. But then you're going to see that we have this wall right here. So in order to fix that problem, we can get out of our camera. Let's go back to our viewport mode and turn on the guides again. And we can press tab, select this wall, GY, move it there. And this wall, GY. Select this wall, X, move it there. Just so that we can make the room a little bigger so that we can sort of zoom out a little more and still not have the camera being cut off by the, what do you call it? By the edges. So I think something like that should be a good place to render from. Let's see. Let's see how it looks. Yeah, I think it looks pretty good. Yeah, that's pretty good. Only thing I might want to do is I might want to move the gaming chair back. Something like that. And maybe rotate it a little bit. Just so that we can add a little more imperfection to the scene, because it looks pretty perfect, you know. Turn off the guides, see how it looks. Yeah, I think it looks pretty good. I think I'm just going to go with this. So I think we are already looking pretty good. The only thing I want to do is now we can probably go ahead and make it look better. How exactly do we do that? Let's figure it out. So we can probably adjust the lighting a little bit and also increase the strength of the lighting a little more, because you're going to see that it looks pretty flat right now. So just make it something like 3. Better. That's better. And also you can probably just remove this lamp if you think it's sort of distracting. If you think this looks better. I personally think the lamp looks better, but if you want to remove it, you can do that as well. Another thing which I'm going to be doing is I'm going to go to my render properties, go down to color management, go down to look, and just set this to something like high contrast. And I think this looks a lot better. Yeah, I think it's pretty good. So another thing which I sort of think, which we could have done, I think this looks pretty warm. The image looks very warm and it looks very, it's lacking blue, right? So what I want to do to compensate for that is I want to change the wallpaper to something blue. I think that's going to look good. So maybe we can search for blue wallpaper, ultra wide, because our, what do you call it? Our monitor is ultra wide, so we're going to need ultra wide monitors, ultra wide wallpapers. So you can just choose any one of these. Obviously, actually I kind of like this one. Let me just download this, save image as, and you can go back to Blender, select object, select the monitor, go down to material, and you're going to see that we have a lot of materials in this. So select the screen one, and then we can just drag this wallpaper, oops, my bad, inside here, and plug this into the base color and the emission. But for the emission, you're gonna have to open it first, and then you can go ahead and plug it in like that. Yeah, I think it looks pretty good. Perfect. So there is a little watermark down there, which is kind of annoying, but it's fine. One thing which we can probably do to fix that watermark is we can go to the UV editing mode, and let's go to our rendered mode. Increase the size, rendered mode. And what we can do is we can, my bad. We can select everything, press A, and just, actually no, the screen is not selected. So one thing which we can fix the watermark is we can just go ahead and select the screen material and just change the position of the Z. Just move it a little higher. Let's see if that changes anything. It is not changing anything because it's not connected to that. So I'm just going to be connecting it to this vector right here. And now let's see. Okay, it's still not doing anything. Okay, that's the y-axis, my bad, not the z. So set it to 0. Set it to something like 0 0.1. 0.1 is way too much. 0.01. That should be fine. And then we can also increase the scale. So just make it 0.99. Like that. Perfect. So we just got rid of the watermark like that. Okay. But by the way, also all credits for this wallpaper go to wallpapersy.com. And yeah, you can just download the wallpaper from here. Perfect. So I think it looks pretty decent. The only thing I might want to do is I might want to increase the strength of the wallpaper to 2, because I think that's going to look better. Another thing which we can do is we can add depth of field using the camera, which is going to give this scene a lot more realism. So select the camera, go down to depth of field, and the focus object, I usually just like to set it to something like something near the keyboard. But for that, I'm going to add an empty object. So just go to add empty, plane axes, just so that we can control this when we're animating. We might want to make changes to the focal point. So just place it somewhere there. and then you can select the focus object to be that empty. Perfect. So now you're going to see that the lamp is a little blur, the chair is a little blur, so you can see that it just adds a little more realism to your scene. Now let's give it a second to render. I'm going to turn off the noise threshold so we can see how it looks. Because usually what happens is that noise threshold sort of stops it from rendering after a certain point, and we don't really want that. Let's see how many samples. I think I want to go up to at least like 500, 600 samples, just so that we can see how it's going to actually look. One problem which I'm noticing is that the Samsung logo for some reason is blue. I don't really want that, so I'm just going to change it back to white. Saturation to 0. Maybe gray, something like that, and metallic should be 1. Yeah, that looks a lot more realistic. Now let's actually let it render and let's see how it looks. And just for reference, this is the original scene, and now we're gonna be basically comparing the two scenes, and we're gonna see which one looks better and how we can make this one look more like this. So I think the reason why this one looks better is maybe because it's a lot brighter, right? So this is not as bright, so we can just go ahead and go to our world settings again, set the strength to something like 5, and let's see. Yeah, I think now they look pretty similar. I think it's a lot better. Another reason could probably be, yeah, I think it looks pretty good. I think it looks pretty similar. One thing which I might want to do is I might want to make the screen a little more reflective. So just go back to object, reduce the roughness, something like that. It's gonna give it more realism, I think. A little bit like that. Yeah, that looks a lot better. Now let's see. Yeah, I think it looks pretty good. I think it looks pretty similar to this scene right here. I still think this scene looks better, and we're gonna continue to try to make it look similar to the original one. And I think part of the reason why it looks better is maybe because the sunlight is more directed to the wall. So you can just change the position of the HDRI and just see what looks good and what doesn't. I think this looks a lot better. Yeah, now our scene looks much better. And one thing we can probably do is, let me actually try this out. So I can just change the position of the lamp from there to the other side. How about we add the lamp right there? I actually think that looks better. Yeah. I kind of like that, honestly. So I'm going to go with that. And let's zoom in a little bit. Yeah, I think, I don't think there's much we really want to do. I might want to change the color of the leather a little bit just so that we can make it more distinct from the table, because I think it looks very similar to the table right now. So maybe increase the saturation, maybe reduce the saturation. Nah, increase it, something like that. 1.2 should be a good option. Reduce the value, maybe make it darker. Yeah, I think that looks good. That looks much better. Yep, I think it looks pretty good. So yeah, our scene is looking pretty decent. Let me add a material to the stand as well. Headphone stand. I'm just gonna call this headphone underscore stand. And let's add a material to this. Add a material. And instead of actually making the material ourselves, we can just import like a plastic material from Blender Kit. Maybe something like that. No, that's not gonna be good. Something like that should be good. Maybe make the color a little less dark. Yep, that looks pretty good. So one other thing we can also do is we can add blinds to the window. So what that's going to do is that it's going to add more lines to the shadows. So let's go ahead and try that. Let's see if it looks good. If it doesn't, we'll just remove them. Just search for blinds. And by the way, in this render, actually no, I don't think I had blinds in this render. So, but we can just go ahead and try it out. Let's see how it looks. So I'm gonna select this one right here, vertical blinds B. These are the open blinds, because obviously we want the blinds to be open. Let's click vertical split. Just click on the edge and click vertical split so that we can have two viewports, and get out of the viewport like that. And we can, okay, where did the blinds go? Turn this on. Now this tutorial might be getting a little complex for some of you guys. So I'm actually really sorry for that if that's actually the case. If you guys have any problems in any part of this course, you can feel free to reach out to me, and I'll try my best to reply to you. But yeah, select this. Okay, it's inside this one right here. So bring it out like that. Select the objects and go to the top view, place it right there, and then we can rotate it in the y-axis 180 degrees. Move it up like that. Scale in the z-axis. So you can see that we have more lines in the shadow. I don't think this necessarily looks good, so I'm just going to delete it, but you know, that's another option you have. But yeah, I think this scene looks actually pretty decent. We are coming along pretty well and looks very realistic. Let's compare it again to this one. And I honestly think this one kind of looks better than this scene. So yeah, this is one of those rare situations when the tutorial actually looks better than the actual result, which we got in the beginning. One thing which I think we can do is we can maybe make this a little brighter, the wall. So just increase the brightness of the wall like that. I think that looks better. Because it's a daytime scene, right? There's no point of it being like dark. Like the brighter it is, the better in most situations. Also, you got to make sure that you're not overexposing the scene. So to check that, you can go to your render settings, go down to the view transform, and just select false color. So it's gonna mess up your scene, but like as long as you have some parts which are gray in your scene, you're basically good to go. You don't really need to worry about anything else. So the blue parts are sort of underexposed, but the red parts and the orange parts and the green parts I think are a little overexposed. But as long as you have like at least some parts which are gray in your viewport, then you should be good to go. Right? You don't really have anything to worry about. So you can go back to AGX, and yeah, I think it looks pretty decent. We might be able to get away with very high contrast, so that's what I'm gonna go with. Let's make the viewport bigger, and let's see how this render looks enlarged, just so that we can look at the details a little closer. Yeah, I think we're basically done with this. Now we can probably start with the animation. But yeah, I think our render looks pretty decent. Alright, so let's finally move on to the animation part, and I'm not gonna lie, this is probably my favorite part in the whole workflow, because I think when you're animating, you really get to see the whole scene like come together and stuff like that. So I think I'm honestly really excited for this. So let me go back to my desktop and just open the animation once again. So you're gonna see that the first shot is off the keyboard, but then the mic is in the background. So let's just start with that. Okay. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna lock camera to view again, because obviously we want to move the camera, right? Another thing which I want to do, which I usually do, is when I'm animating, I usually like to basically change the focal length. But let's see if we need to change the focal length in this. Also, this keyboard, I don't know if I'm really feeling this keyboard, honestly. How about we just go ahead and replace this with the black version? Because the problem is the white version is reflecting too much light, and I don't really know if I like it. It was looking good in the start, but I don't think so. I don't think I'm gonna go with this. Let's just go with the black version, honestly, because it's reflecting too much light and it just doesn't look that good. Okay, let's see if we can get another model which looks better. Yeah, so this is the one which I'm planning to go with. This one's nice, but oh, this one's good too. Like sort of like a Apple. It is basically the Apple keyboard, but oh, this looks good. Let's try this. Select objects, and let's press G Shift Z to move it here. GZ to move it up like that. And let's see. Let's look at it. Oh, I think I love this, honestly. Yeah, I'm just gonna go with this, honestly. So let me go back to my viewport mode so that we can place it properly. So let's go to the side view. Not Shift Z, Alt Z to go into X-ray mode so that we can place it properly. And just eyeball it. My bad. Just eyeball it and make sure it's like slightly above the mouse pad, something like that. Let's see if it's good. Yeah, I think it's fine. Also, the wire, I want to get rid of the wire because I want it to be wireless. Okay, if I delete the wire, it gets rid of that as well. So I think what I'm going to have to do is I'm going to have to press tab to go into edit mode. press A to select everything and delete it that way. That way it's gonna get rid of the wire. Custom keyboard, select objects and RZ 90 like that. And let me go to the top view and place it like this. Should be fine. Yeah, let's go back to our camera and let's see how this looks. So this is our focal point, by the way. We can just change it to be wherever we want. I don't really know, honestly. I thought this would look better than it does look. It looks right now. I had higher hopes. Let's see what we can do. Oh, I think this one looks nice. But again, you have a lot of options. I'm probably just gonna go with this one right here, the G915, G915 keyboard. I'm just gonna delete this custom keyboard because I just don't like it as much as I thought I would. Again, what this goes to show you is that animation is always a process of just trial and error, just trying out a bunch of different things. And honestly, one thing which I'm going to recommend you is, even if you think you like something, even if you got a model and you think you like it, I would still recommend you to like try out other models, because you never know what you're going to like more, right? Oftentimes what happens is that I like something, in fact I love something, but then I find something better, right? So I would recommend you to not settle on the first model that you find, and just keep doing some trial and error, and just like, yeah. And oftentimes when I'm like revisiting my old artworks, I end up just almost always like improving them, because I changed a few of the models and it just looks much better. So yeah, I think this one looks, I don't know what I don't know what about this is making it look more realistic, but for some reason it just looks more realistic, and I can't really explain it. But yeah, so let's start with this animation. So let's do something like this. Let's start from here and then pan all the way here. Also, let me go back to my render settings, and inside viewport denoise, I'm going to set the start sample to 2, so that when I'm moving my viewport, it doesn't denoise it, which is going to drastically improve the speed, improve the smoothness of the viewport. Because when it's trying to like basically denoise every frame, it just sort of slows it down. Maybe even 3, 4, something like that should be good. Okay, let's start from here and go all the way here. Yep. Okay, so for the animation, what I'm going to do is that I'm just going to open up the timeline right here. So instead of this shader editor, let's open the timeline, go to the first frame, select the camera, go to the frame, go to the place where you want the animation to start. So somewhere here, right? And press I to insert a keyframe. Make sure your camera is selected, by the way. I to add a keyframe, and location and rotation. Because that's what we're going to be changing, right? We're going to be changing the location and the rotation of the camera. Go ahead to something like 90 frames. Also, you can change the frame rate by going to output properties and make sure that your frame rate is set to something like 24 or 30 or 60 or whatever you want, right? But again, just do note that your frame rate is being controlled by this. And just set the final position, something like that should be good. Press I again and add another keyframe. And you're going to see that this animation looks pretty decent. The only problem right now is that if I go to my viewport mode, so that I can show you the animation smoothly, is that it speeds up in the start and slows down at the end. That is not something we want. So we're going to select both of the keyframes, right click them, interpolation mode, and set it to linear. Now you're going to see that it's going to be the constant, be the same speed throughout the whole animation, which is exactly what we want. And yeah, I think it looks pretty decent. Perfect. So after that, after frame number 90, just go to frame number 91, right? Basically the next frame that you wanna, what do you call it? The next frame after the animation. And this should, the focus of this animation, this shot should be, let's see. Okay, it's behind the chair. Let's try something like that. Yeah. So also you can hold shift and alt and control, and use your left mouse button, like press your left mouse button and drag it to control the zoom precisely. So let's start from somewhere here. Location rotation, and go to something like, I don't know, 180. And then zoom out a little bit, something like that. Press I again. And with both of them selected, before we even look at it, you're going to see that I'm going to set the interpolation mode to linear. Yep, I think it looks good. Perfect. Let me go to my viewport mode so that we can like look at it smoothly. Yep, it's also unzooming a little bit, which I think adds a really interesting effect to it. And yeah, I'm just going to go with that. Perfect. So the last shot was of the same place basically, but I kind of want to, what I kind of want to do is I want to have like a final shot. Actually, let's just do this. Let's start from here. Again, the shots that I'm doing are pretty basic. You can feel free to sort of add specific shots for different objects. You can also animate the, what do you call it, the focal point. Yeah, feel free to make changes as you wish. This is just to like show you sort of like a basic outline of what you can do. And again, right click, interpolation mode, linear. And yeah, that looks pretty good. So also one thing which you can do is you can also change the focal point. You can animate the focal point as well. For example, in this shot, I want the focus to be on the keyboard, right? But after this shot, I want the focus to be on maybe like, I don't know, maybe the screen, all right? The screen. So what I'm going to do is that I'm going to go up to frame number 90 and I'm going to select the focal point, like the empty object, which is, I think it's this one. It's inside this gaming chair collection. So I'm just going to bring it out, by the way, and just rename it to something like focus point. Perfect. And so with this selected, I'm just going to press I to add a keyframe. Location rotation should be fine, or just location would do. And when you go to frame number 91, what I'm going to do is that I'm going to be changing the position of this to the screen. Bring it up. GX, something like that. And I'm going to press I again to add a keyframe. Right, so what's going to happen is that up to frame number 90, it's going to be here. But from frame 90 to 91, it's automatically going to jump over to the other, to, what do you call it? Basically the other position. Let me actually show you how this works. So if I get out of my camera, you're going to see, and if I go to my viewport mode, you're going to see that up to frame number 90, it stays there. But when I go to frame number 91, it's going to basically switch over to another position, right? If obviously we increase this, then it's going to take its time and it's going to basically animate between those 2 points. But like in one frame, you can't really animate anything. So it's just going to snap over to the other position. But one thing which I want to do is I actually want to have some distance between them so that we can sort of animate the focus, which I think looks pretty good. So let's actually see how this looks. So what's going to happen is that it's going to start from here and then the focus is going to go towards the screen. And we can't really see how this looks right now because obviously it's like very blurry and it's not rendered, but like once we are done with the rendering, hopefully it's going to look good and we can see the results then. But yeah, so this is how you can do that. And I think in the final shot, I think the focal point is fine. If it's on the screen, it's perfectly fine. Also, one thing which you might be noticing is the fact that in this scene, there's not much, what do you call it? There's not much depth of field in like objects which are on the desk, right? So for example, this is in focus, the keyboard is in focus, the screen is in focus. Everything is basically in focus except for that, like that plant. But in this, you're going to see that there's quite a lot more depth of field, which in my opinion looks better. But if you don't want that, I'm just going to show you how. So you can go to your camera. You can go down to the camera settings and you can increase the f-stop value. So the higher the f-stop value is, the lesser your depth of field is going to be. So if I set it to something like 10, you're going to see that pretty much everything is in focus. But if I set it to 1, you're going to see that there's going to be a lot of depth of field. So I think something like 3 should be fine in this situation. But yeah, again, it's a personal preference thing. Some people love depth of field, some people don't really like it that much. I think it makes, like, especially in 3D scenes, it makes your scenes look a lot more realistic. Like for example, this shot right here, because there's a mic in the foreground, which is blurred. I think it looks much more realistic, I think. So yeah, again, it really depends on your personal preference. If you don't like it, you can feel free to change it and like do whatever you want. But yeah, that's essentially what I'm trying to say. So yeah, I guess we're pretty much done with the animation. We can just go ahead and render this, and once we are done, we can just edit this inside of Premiere Pro. Now I'm probably not going to render this animation again because I already do have it rendered once, like this animation, the original one. So the editing part in Premiere Pro, I'm just going to show you with these frames, because just so that we can like save some time and computer resources, because it's going to take a lot of time to like render this animation again, and I don't really see a point of doing that. But yeah, so that's essentially it for this scene. You can go ahead and click render. Actually, before that, go to output properties and go down to output and just click this button right here to set your output folder, right? So again, you can just go to desktop, scan them, and course, whatever, just like save whatever you want and accept, render, and click render animation. Make sure your start frame is 1 and your end frame is wherever you want the animation to end, right? So render animation, and perfect. So it's just gonna go ahead and render it out for you. Also, my bad, one thing we forgot to do was change the samples, because right now we're rendering with 4,000 samples, which is insane. So usually what I like to do is I like to do this thing called a sample test. I mean, it's actually not called a sample test. I just call it a sample test because why not? It's when basically I turn on the viewport guides and I look up here. It says the samples, right? And I just look at the scene and I sort of eyeball it. After what point does this start to look like decent, right? Because right now it's not looking decent because there's some artifacts in the mic, because the samples are pretty low. So after maybe 300 or 400 frames, it should start looking better. Yeah, I think something like 400 frames should be the sweet spot, or maybe 500. So I'm just gonna go down to render, max samples, I'm just gonna set it to 500, and then you can just go ahead and click render and render animation. Again, these samples are gonna be different in your case. You can set them to whatever value you want, but do note that the higher value you set them to, the more time it's gonna take to render. And yeah, just note that. But I mean, obviously the results are gonna be better too, up to a certain point. But yeah, so it's rendering right now, and I'll see when it's complete.